I created this presentation out of my understanding, and so only thing is that so understanding is not something which is static. Like once you have understood, and you are the all knower, or one is now you are fully sure about it. So understanding keeps evolving, and one has to keep re-evaluating whether the understanding has been correct or not. So in that terms, some of the things may not be correct. My understanding may not be fully correct, but so whole idea is to give this presentation so that I can share this understanding and see that where it is flawed, and then we can discuss about it. And the topic which I have chosen is the path shown by Buddha. So Buddha had lots of followers in his time, and after his death also, with more than 2000 years, the people who have been following, trying to understand the teachings of Buddha. And so what does Buddha wanted to say? Why Buddha said something, or what Buddha wanted us to understand? That's the topic I've chosen. And so I directly want to start with Third Noble Truth. So in the light that we already know Four Noble Truths, and we know we have been reading suttas and having discussions, so we know teachings about Buddha. So I want to start with the Third Noble Truth in the sense that that is the Noble Truth that describes the destination where Buddha points to, that this is the place where you can reach if you follow the follow his teachings, or follow the path which he himself has followed. And but the term destination can become very misleading, that one can try to easily attach to destination, and destination can become very clinging. So just before talking about destination, so this second slide talks about the destination is the cessation of stress, and one can intellectually understand that what is the cessation of stress is. That's the one view of understanding. And the second view of understanding is that one, when follows the path of the Buddha, one can slowly get glimpse of what the cessation of stress can be. And that's where the understanding of cessation of stress can become more clarified, because that will come from experiential basis. And so there has always been some different opinions. If we talk about Vipassana meditation by Goenka ji versus Ajahn Sumedho, where Ajahn Sumedho says that end of suffering is here and now, in the present moment, and versus that in Vipassana meditation one has to slowly follow a path and reach a particular reach to that destination of cessation of suffering. But my understanding is that probably both can be true. One can experience some moments of cessation when one recognizes self attachment to the things, and that's where for momentarily one can see the cessation of the suffering, and then there can be one goal where one can be probably fully released. But so so in that light, I want to point out that the destination is not important. We can say that this is a goal, but this is a goal or indicator that whether we are on the right path or not. But this is not a goal, that's something we want to attach to. If we attach to this goal, we actually come back from the third to first noble truth, that there is suffering, because once we attach, we are there. So, but this is still very important to keep in mind in light that Buddha also says that we need to investigate that what we are doing is right or not, whether we are on the right path or not. And if we can ask ourselves this question at some intervals, that whether I am on the right path or not. So this can become one question which we can ask. Do I understand what is cessation of suffering is, or will my practice eventually lead to the cessation of suffering? So that can be an important question to measure against, but this is not something that one needs to attach to, that this is what I want, I'm not able to reach there, and then bringing the suffering itself. So that's the slide one needs to be careful about. So question from Silesh is that isn't cessation of stress mean you have transcended I? So definitely yes. That's the meaning of, that's the way of we can put cessation of suffering, because as we have understood in our while reading the suttas, the suffering comes with this attachment to I, and if there is no attachment to I, the suffering won't be there. But again, but that statement intellectually becomes very true. But if we try to attach to that statement, no, I don't need to attach, I don't need to attach, then it again becomes a means of like clinging, and which itself brings suffering. So there is, so one needs to be really careful about what one is trying to do with the goal. So, so the rest of the slides are my understanding that how one can reach to the goal without trying to really directly trying to say that no, I need to reach to the goal, and this is the goal I want to reach. So what really becomes important is the path one has to follow rather than the final destination. That's the whole sense. My understanding is. So the next slide is that keeping the four noble truths in perspective, the fourth noble truth actually becomes the path. So that's why probably the four noble truths are structured that probably the third noble truth tells you that it is possible, and then the fourth noble truth actually tells you that how it is possible, and then whole of the life probably becomes the way to follow this fourth noble truth, and just evaluating that whether I am following the fourth noble truth correctly or not. And the eightfold path being mentioned in this fourth noble truth, essentially whole of the Buddha's teaching is in one way or another is trying to talk about one particular path from this Eight Noble Path. Based, so if Buddha's teaching was contextual, given to a particular monk based on his abilities or based on what will be skillful for him. So probably it can be one of the more explanation with one or more of these things, and because some of the things they may already have been following. So I won't go into the individual Eightfold Path details, but I'll like to go to the next slide where I'd like to talk more about in what what are the various ways Buddha gave some specific teachings to his followers. Okay, and so apart from four noble truth, which was the first discourse of Buddha, Buddha also tried to show that the progress on path can be seen in various ways. And suttas after suttas, Buddha keeps mentioning about one of these things and similarly related. And Buddha says that we need to measure whether with our meditation are we getting disenchantment, are we getting dispassion. That's one way of looking at things. Another way of looking can be is that we're trying to remove this. If we just consider this body, if one gets so attached to this body and says that this body is mine, and the practice which Buddha gave the monks was that to remove this association with body, one has to see that there is no difference between this body and the external world, and that's where Buddha taught teaching that this body is composed of various elements, and these elements are, there's no difference between those elements, internal and external. That's what Buddha has mentioned in various teachings. And so Buddha also says that consciously try to see that this is not me, I am not this is not myself, and this can also become one expedient means. This can also become expedient means for some of the attachments which we get, or the in the moment when we are suffering, then we can suddenly realize, and we can see that I'm getting attached to this, and you can always at that moment choose to get non-attached. And similarly, Buddha also likes to break things in 5 khandas, and it becomes feelings, perceptions, mental fabrications, consciousness, and form. And so Buddha says that try to see things in that light, and then see your attachment towards that, and see that these things are impermanent, or these things are changing, and these things, you are not these things. And again, another important concept which comes out is that whatever arises is subject to cessation, and whole of the Vipassana teaching in fact becomes the expedite means of trying to realize this. And so another way to look at the is that the path which Buddha tells is like one of the ways to remove the attachment is to really break things apart. And when you break things apart, you see that the solidity or the reality which you are trying to see is really not real. And and Buddha mentioned this in case of your body. And so I'll just come over that in the next slide.
Because I was you suggesting that some of these are skillful means that one should try and do as part of the path.
I'll tell you. This is the theme I want to start. So my question is that I want to clearly ask. So I want to clearly ask. I want to clearly ask. So I want to clearly ask that what is the there is some more actually sense needed that what is really the path which Buddha is trying to show. If you are clear about the goal, that probably goal is to leave the cessation of suffering, and then you say that let's keep this goal there in back of the mind, but not really getting attached. But then, what is the path? Then my understanding is that whole of the teaching of Buddha is a skillful way, skillful means to do those skillful things which take you closer to the path. And whole of the Buddha's teaching is to abandon what is unskillful so that you can reach to the path. So if you keep those things, these two things in the mind, that whole of the teaching is skillful and do what is skillful and not do one is what is unskillful, then all this complexity of Buddha teaching simplifies, because one can say that this is what I understand and this is what I'll follow, and my understanding can change, my circumstances can change, then I can probably have either better understanding, or based on what I like, I can take something different which is skillful for that moment or at that particular point, but keeping the larger context in the picture. If the context is not clear that why we are doing blameworthy. Okay, so this is the really the my understanding of the path which we can try to follow, and then we can learn and we can try to search that what is skillful and what is not skillful, what we need to follow. And so I've also mentioned the three things: greed, aversion, delusion. What do we do? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Now okay.
Okay. Okay. Just a second.
It's okay, मैंने यहाँ पे किया. The participant, you know.
Okay. So, so in terms of what is skillful and what is non-skillful. So in the Sutta, Mula Sutta, in AN 3.69, Buddha says that greed, aversion and delusion, these are the roots of what is unskillful. So all the unskillful things comes out of these things at the base. And then one of the simple way of learning Buddha's teaching can be to really see how one can remove this greed, aversion and delusion. So that can be the one way of looking at the things. Okay. And so I purposefully kept this slide. This is from Pitaka Kasankhata Sutta. And the reason I kept this slide in between is that probably this is given to a particular monk where he was at that moment imbued with some desire or aversions. And this sutta clearly referenced that if some unskillful things have come in mind, then you will need. Then if you are really not, if a meditation is not really strong, then you will eventually flow in that unskillful thoughts. So in that terms, you will have to really apply some alternate means to really come out of that unskillful state, rather than seeing that let me see this unskillful state and keep flowing in that unskillful state. And so the things mentioned here is that one by one there are suggestions given that if some unskillful state has come to you, then do this, then do this, then do this. And the simplest is that do something which is skillful at that moment, so that the unskillful thoughts or impressions go away. And if still it doesn't go away, then scrutinize and see the drawbacks of your unskillful states. Or an alternative is that pay no attention to your unskillful thoughts. Another way is that you relax your body or your mind so that those unskillful thoughts go away. And उसके बाद भी कुछ नहीं होता है तो अपने दांत मीच के एकदम strong force लगाओ कि you can try to prevent that thought. So in some moment this kind of thing can also become skillful means of coming out of the unskillful state. So my whole sense is that doing such kind of thing, if one is sitting in meditation and or probably in normal circumstances, and one is seeing that one is कुछ हो ही नहीं रहा है और बार बार इस तरह की चीजें आ रही हैं, so that's one thing one can do. So what is the question from Shilesh is what is the relaxing of thought fabrication? I'm also not fully sure. Maybe we can refer to the Rupa, or we can.
Relaxing of thought formation actually, I think implies that we observe it actually. Then only you can relax from it. So you are able to observe. There is a thought which is arising. So if we are not able to observe, then we get trapped. Then we roll in the thought.
Yeah.
When you roll in the thought, then if you keep patience for some time, then just keep on observing that you are rolling in the thought. Even if you don't note that, then that rolling stops. But if you are not able to see that also, then something has to be done, because that thought may lead to very unwholesome action. If the thought becomes very dominant, it may lead to very unwholesome action. speech, unwholesome speech, unwholesome action. So therefore the need to apply pressure when such a the thought is very powerful. Because all unwholesome actions have as their basis an unwholesome thought which triggers them.
There is this strong ruling of the thoughts or the strong moments where we are strongly, basically we are not, and we cannot be mindful. For all those moments, these things do become skillful means. But if we look at it and try to apply it with lot more than just the strongest emotion things, then it becomes running away also. We are trying to run away, for example, again to another theme.
Diverting the mind.
Diverting the mind, and rather than facing it and seeing through it, we say that the skillful means is to stop this and go somewhere else.
All this should be used when we are unable to see. So things get out of control. Really things get, and it happens. Sometimes things can get out of control. When they get out of control, before you go to the next level of harm, you can apply a brake somewhere.
Yeah.
It's like putting a brake somewhere.
And so the next slide I kept was this 5 subject of frequent recollection, and that also becomes very skilled.
These are the standard things which is a part of morning chanting in monasteries.
Oh. And actually I have taken from one chanting book also, but I might have seen this in Saputa. So this
basically remembering 5 truths, basically the truths which you have to remember.
Yeah, and these truths can actually bring some kind of a grounding, like when the comes to the some sense of calmness. I should not say calmness, but some quietness when one tries to refer to this statement that I'm nature to age, I've not gone beyond aging, I'm nature to sickness, I've not gone beyond sickness, I'm nature to die, and I've not gone beyond die. So when our attachments become very strong, so at that particular moment, we remember these things. It can have very easily see our attachments and can help us become more calm. And other 2 things are again same things, that if
all that is pleasant, dear to me, I'll get separated.
Will become otherwise.
Every day.
Yeah.
You need to be very strong to reflect on it every day. It's very powerful.
Yeah.
Some people can get depressed on it. So you have to be careful. Honestly, be careful.
Initially, I think one can become a bit depressed, but
if you talk to this to children, they get depressed.
yeah. And so yeah, but in fact, I think that at least I can also get, and actually I personally experienced that in terms of when I was in camp. So I said, let me do this 32 body parts. I'll just try to remember in free time. So probably 5, 6 times or 10 times I would have. Yeah. So initially तो आप मजे में मतलब बोल लेते हो, then suddenly आपको लगता है भाई क्या कर रहे हो? You get a some sense of like डिप्रेशन की क्या कर रहे हो, क्या बकवास है।
This whole issue of death can be very unnerving. I remember बहुत छोटा था मैं, तो एक वो ड्रामा हम लोग सिटी तब तो रेडियो पे एक ड्रामा आ रहा था अभिमन्यु का, तो ड्रामा आता है तो उसमें था मर गया। अब तो मैं था और मेरे भाई थे, मेरे दादाजी थे, हम एक कमरे थे, मेरे माता पिता दूसरे कमरे में बैठे। तो माता जी पिता दादाजी से पूछते थे क्या हो गया इसको डेड, तो फिर वो कहते वो तो अब आएगा ही नहीं, क्या हो गया। I think I must have wept for 2 nights. उसने कहा तो सबको ही मरना है, आप ही चले जाओगे, दादाजी का तुम मर जाओगे। And I was so overcome, रोता ही रहा, अभी क्यों दादाजी चले जाएंगे, दादाजी। So it was so unnerving, and then of course I was too small to really able to penetrate and understand कि क्या उसका मतलब। And the people of course then use that skill in me। इसको डाइवर्ट कर दो भैया और ले जाओ।
पर उसको बच्चों को समझाना बड़ा मुश्किल है। उसको मैंने बताया था कि हुए तो ये जो बता रहे हैं तो बड़ा मुश्किल है।
If you use that opportunity very wisely, the parents are very wise, and they can use that opportunity also very wisely, depending on the situation.
So the fifth subject in this reflection is related to karma. That I am the owner of my karma, heir to my karma, born of my karma, related to my karma, abide supported by my karma, and whatever I shall do for good or evil, of that I will be higher. At least the last statement becomes very important, that whatever I choose, good or evil, I will be the higher. So at least if one is doing something unskillful, you will remember that, and at least it gives you a sense that boss, you're doing something wrong. उसका बहुत में effect तो पड़ेगा ही.
Statement in Pali, if you read, it really resonates very powerfully. Kammayoni kammadaya yamyam kammam karishyami kammadaya papakam va kalyanakam ऐसे है very powerful.
So the next slide,
if we, if we do these recollections every day as a part of morning reflection, they are very powerful. Very powerful. Sometimes, we tend to dismiss this issue of observation and religious ceremonies. ये जो फालतू है बकवास है, they have their value. When people remember and recant this every day, evening, every morning, every evening, शुरू में तो लगा यार फालतू है, then someday it will hit you like a big boulder here, such a, and then it begins to sink in and really have a powerful. Of course, it has to be done with understanding. You just speak anything in Pali, वो समझ नहीं आ रहा है, and becomes a burden. If you understand it, it will be very powerful. The recollection of the very first recollection, there is death and I have not gone beyond it. And these things, goodness and I have not gone. They can motivate you to see for the extent of it. End of death, end of suffering, and end of death means end of birth. And then you begin to understand it. And you begin to really become a seeker, search for the end of suffering, and not just search for momentary relief from distress.
So the next slide I kept was that skillful is the perception of loathsomeness, and my sense is that this becomes very important in our day-to-day life is because most of the time if we watch TV or if we at least TV, I can surely say that most of the time it's the sensual pleasures listening to music and films, and this attachment to the senses becomes so strong, attachment to this body becomes so strong, and this perception of loathsomeness can be really helpful. And 32 body parts essentially says that this solidity which you see outside in your body with your skin, when we see ourselves, what we see is this body which has skin, but essentially beneath this skin are all those organs and blood flowing in the veins. And so initially, like when I try to do this in camp, शुरू में तो बोल दिया ऐसे, and suddenly at some point लगता है क्यों कर रहा हूँ, and you get some sense of depression, and then if you then I still kept doing it, and I saw ultimately that it's really true, because the sense we say this body is essentially this all these parts which are hidden, and we are just, but we never worry about not worry what in everybody, like we see that one single solidity, one single person, but essentially everybody is really does this various body parts covered with skin. It try to reduce your lust in some simple terms. And again, this charnel ground meditation, just try to see that one day you'll be lying in charnel ground and being eaten by crows, and at least if that in today's sense is not valid, but at least one can definitely see that one is lying on a fire with all the on top of all those woods, और बस वो अब आपको जलाने वाले हैं. At least that is the reality. And if one can be like do this in a more quiet way, I'm saying more in a quiet way because in a more balanced mind, then these can be really helpful. And to just shake oneself. And I also mentioned this small paragraph from the Maranasi Sutta. It says that the Buddha keeps asking his monks who have been practicing mindfulness of that, and one person says that I keep in mind that I can die in one day or one night. Then one says I can die in a day, I can die in a night, in one night. And then the interval of one thinks that I can die keeps reducing, and that's where it comes to that. For the interval it takes to breathe out after breathe in, or breathe in after breathe out, that I might attend to Blessed One's instruction, I would have accomplished a great. So in the sense that it says that in this short duration also one can die. You never know what's going to happen to the next moment. So it becomes more skillful way of grounding oneself if one is getting attached to all those essential pleasures. And this is a slide this table I got from Wikipedia, and I just put it. Again, on the left side is that various enlightenment factors: joy, rapture, investigation, mindfulness, relaxation, equanimity. And so one can, so Buddha's meditation really says that one can practice these skillful ways to take your practice to the next level. and this can be done to overcome corresponding hindrances like sloth and torpor, or to mindfulness as a balancing factor, or to remove restlessness and worry, which are like unskillful states.
So, if you feel very happy about something, and it could be to do with either, let's say, you believe you have done something really wonderful, maybe for yourself or maybe for others. It may be for a good cause or it may be for a selfish cause, but you are feeling very happy and proud and wow, this is a great thing that has happened. Or it may be a very innocent kind of joy of, oh, this is such good things happening to other people, or I'm happy about this child. So at that time, should you remind yourself of the need to be equanimous and say, I should not feel so delighted or happy or elated because this is all temporary? What is your view?
Feeling happy and joyous is a part of the outcomes of meditation. There is nothing wrong per se with that. It isn't accurate. One can be mindful of it. And in fact, if you remember, in one of the discourses, Buddha tells his son also, when you do reflection, in non-reflection you find that the action that you have done was not harmful to others, not harmful to you, it was for the good of all, and you should feel happy and rejoice in that. And motivate yourself to do that more and more. So there's nothing wrong with it. But the only thing is one should reflect. Am I getting carried away? Is it something which has come out of an wholesome act? Certainly one should feel happy and rejoice in it. And rejoice in, suppose somebody else does good work, and we rejoice in it. And we give him compliments. And it's all very good. Certainly. Only thing is, don't take it personally. You should always have gratitude. Whenever there is happiness, we can always remember who all have contributed to my happiness and have gratitude. So that acts as stabilizing. So you don't get carried away and take it personally. No, to run away from happiness would be as bad as to run after it.
So the next slide.
Run away from happiness is as bad as
No, people get to say that I want to be simple is a fundamental contradiction. I want to lead a simple life and I am an Aam Aadmi. It's a fundamental contradiction. Because you are then trying to achieve something. You have an objective. You want to put to yourself a picture of simplicity and I want to be humble. It cannot be. You cannot put an effort and say, oh, I have to come. The very statement is contradictory. So we go through all these kind of things. I remember in the initial phases of our attempt in trying to stop equilibrium, some of our friends said, oh no, we should not have a fridge at home, we should not have anything at home, we should not have TV at home. And as the children grew, they took so much of problems and I told them, so much preparation. Why are you sticking to an ideology? You're not a monk. घर के बच्चे हैं वो पड़ोसी घर जाके टीवी देख रहे हैं और तुम खरीदना नहीं चाहते क्या फर्क पड़ता है? It creates a negativity in them. So then we have to readjust, recalibrate it. Anyway, to see that it is that very famous saying: to give more than what you have is generosity, and to take less than what you need is pride. It's pride. Let's reflect on it. Very powerful statement.
It's very good.
So you should think, and I found it absolutely true.
I think somehow most of us who are trying to see,
Especially those who are spiritual seekers, they get into that complication. I have myself got into that complication so many times. I can easily see that when I read it, I said, yeah, how true it is. Because you're taking things personally. No?
Yeah, I should not take.
I should not take this, I should not even get this, I should not have it. Body needs it, Baba, take it. If you are ill, take medicine. Yeah. What are you trying to show by not taking medicine? So that becomes, that's a counterbalancing factor of how the ego can arise in a surreptitious way, in a very so-called noble way. पता ही नहीं चलता है. When I read it, I was really amazed at the insight of somebody that would write like that. Because normally people can't think it in that manner. Because it is manifestation of ego that you need it and then still you are not taking it to.
So, but for things there it becomes clear that you need it and you are not taking it. But examples like which are in the boundary, like using a fridge, using an AC, or using things which may seem luxury,
Yeah,
or may
that's
seem
okay. But if it is hurting you, you better take it. If at the home you're finding it difficult, you're getting difficulty in family, and it's creating a difficulty in your time spent in activities. So why make an issue of that?
Where is the line?
Everybody has to try something.
सर एक बार ये कोड रिपीट कर देंगे.
Everybody has to try once.
2-3 कोड है, मेरे बहुत अच्छे हो रहे हैं.
सर वो कोड एक बार दोबारा बता दीजिए. I just want to अब वो जो प्राइड हो
Giving more than what you have is generosity. And taking less than what you need is pride. One of these lamas had said it. I'm really deeply impressed by this.
The other one also I found very conscious. Running away from happiness can be as bad as running after it.
So running away from materials is as harmful as running for seeking, and after pleasures is as harmful as running away from pleasures. Some people.
There is an element of subjective judgment that each one of
Whether
us have
where
to
we are
make.
running after or not.
So
One has to have that
when I see that,
equanimity to see whether I am seeking or is it coming naturally.
so when I look at every few months, I get the cable disconnected because I see that the family is overdoing it. I see the children spending a lot of time on that, studies are suffering, they are not talking to each other. And then I basically tell them, nothing doing, I'm getting this disconnected because it is harming them. And then after a few months, I will start to hear these pleads, no. My wife will tell me that you can't do this. Kids compare with other and they say, my father is so strict, you need to get something right. So we start with one, okay, no more than 30 minutes, and gradually over months it will go up. And then at some point I will again say, this is again getting. So I don't know what is the right
It
solution.
is a very right thing, but you can always, because this is an opportunity for children to learn self-restraint. It's a very good opportunity. So you make them self-restraint, put a self-check on them. Let them see, okay, we have an agreement, we can see for half an hour or 1 hour. These days, and then when there is more importance, you can see when there is less importance, your holiday, okay, you take 1 hour, 2 hours, whatever you decide mutually. Let it be done with mutual consent and let them really use this as a method of gaining self-esteem. That is the best way.
So I'm starting to do that. But in addition, because this is actually very common.
Yeah.
This thing is so common that you can go into extremes of either side.
Yeah.
So and I have gone through this for last and experimented with different things last couple of years, and I think I have now come up to this what you just said that
Very चीनी आपको चीनी कम तो नहीं है?
मैं तो लेता नहीं.
is using this as an opportunity for the child to learn the restraint. But I found along with that another very important thing, which was that to do it yourself also. Because
because restraint cannot be focused. तब तो वो हो गया है, tyranny हो जाती है ना. If it comes from them कि नहीं पापा ने कहा भैया 1 घंटा और देर हो गई, चलो 5 मिनट बंद करना. And you see that they are slowly and slowly. आपको आपने 1 घंटे का टाइम दिया, उन्होंने 1.25 घंटा देख लिया, फिर अपने आप ख्याल आ गया नहीं ज्यादा हो गया भाई, आगे से ख्याल करेंगे. That's a very good thing. Then they naturally learn to observe self. Otherwise सीखेंगे कैसे?
But I found that what didn't work is that you make a rule for the child that you can only watch it for 1 hour. Why? Because you are a child, you are studying, you need this and that. But I have no restrictions. तुम्हारा 1 घंटा खत्म हो जाएगा, I watch news for 2 hours or 3 hours. That actually bounces back.
So here it's gone to the next level. Because they know if I tell them that you shouldn't watch TV for more than 1 hour, they know I will not do that either. So they say, just because you don't like watching, they put it back on me.
आपको अच्छा नहीं लगता तो
It has been a constant issue for us also in China. Because I didn't.
It's so universal now. Almost everywhere it is so universal.
So sometimes you have to be firm and say, yeah, you may be feeling bad right now, but in the long run, this is good for you.
I remember when I was child was going कॉलेज में जा रहा था तो उसने कितना हंगामा मचाया, मुझे मोटरसाइकिल चाहिए. मैंने कहा भाई तू यहाँ से रवाना जाना IIT से on a mobike and come back. It's a risky thing. Don't you want everything?
बच्चों को समझाना बड़ा मुश्किल हो
इसकी माँ तो बिल्कुल मानने को तैयार नहीं थी. हो जाएगा कुछ हो जाएगा.
एक बार गड्ढे में नहीं गिरी,
बाद में गिर गई है. But then you had to say कि भाई देख, but we couldn't really. He started protesting. वो धरने में बैठ गया. He didn't come from home. ऑफिस तो उसे हॉस्टल से आना उनके लिए. तब बहाना शिफ्ट हो गया था.
मैं नहीं आऊंगा.
हाँ एक बार आया भी नहीं.
एक बार आए थे, पहले ही आया था.
किसी भी कारण से अब हम उनकी दादी उसकी माँ सब परेशान.
और दूसरा जैसे आजकल बच्चे अपना
But then
अपना ही पता है.
कई बार गिरा, कई बार वो हुआ.
लेकिन बच्चों को बिठा के आपस में शेयर करना वो बहुत जरूरी है. ये करते ही नहीं. जैसे मैं भी हमारी फैमिली में क्या था, ये नहीं कि कोई वो थी, हम आपस में सब अपना अपना पढ़ते थे, अपना अपना बस खाया पे स्कूल में पढ़ाई, आपस में हम भाई बहन बात नहीं करते थे. अपनी बात बता रही हूँ. अब शादी के बाद मेरा बड़ा ब्रदर और मैं नहीं कभी बात शुरू करी. मतलब कभी ये नहीं कि कोई झगड़ा था या कुछ था. एक मतलब फिर मुझे पता इनकी घर में जाती थी, ये तो करे पढ़ाई नहीं रहते थे ज्यादा नहीं.
फिर भी हम भाई बहन बहुत झगड़े भी करते थे, खेलते भी थे.
सिस्टर ब्रदर जो है हम रात को 12 साढ़े 12 पढ़ते थे. मैं 12 साढ़े 12 तब तक बीच में बात पढ़ते भी थे. तो वो चीज बहुत जरूरी. बच्चों में आपस में बहन भाई हो तो रहता ही नहीं कुछ. तो एक दूसरे को समझते ही नहीं हो ना कि भाई बहन है भाई है. वो चीज बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है.
And as you grow old, you need it much more.
Yeah.
At our age now, after my death of my mother, for example, my sister feels so distraught.
And I think as we grow old, the things that used to keep you busy earlier reduces a lot, especially children growing up. Then the need of this is a lot more.
Unless you have a support like Dhamma available. Good, Deepak. Well done.
The chance lights and
हाँ. पहले चाय पी लें या पहले या दोनों साथ साथ करें?
नहीं. So the next slide I kept was for Brahmaviharas. So one can cultivate them, which will remove the hatred from oneself and bring more happiness or more joyous state. And these four Brahm Viharas are love and kindness for all, and compassion that other person's suffering will diminish, and emphatic joy in the accomplishment of the person, another person, of oneself, and equanimity, and so this can become very skillful to quieten the mind and make oneself quiet, and can be one of the great skillful means. And many of the meditation teachers start with this meditation.
So here another paradox is there, which is very similar to what you were just referring, that if one starts to think that I want to be humble, I want to be simple, there is an inherent paradox in that, and a contradiction in that. So how can we develop these? First, can we say I want to be compassionate?
No, you see, there's nothing wrong in having that as an aspiration. But when you make a declaration of it, what I meant was when you make a declaration of it, then it is contradictory. Having those things as an aspiration is very good, right? They are positive traits. You can call them from modern thinking, positive thinking. But when you make a display of it, and when you want to force yourself into that situation, then it becomes counterproductive. It can become, I should say, it can become counterproductive. So because it can indirectly kind of strengthen your ego.
Yeah. So let's take the example of say compassion, which is a very strong Brahm Vihara in the part. And if you see something where you are not, you are, for example, having some aversion or some hatred and towards somebody or something, and we say develop compassion towards it. Would that be forcing yourself, as you were saying?
If you do it because of this, just because of this reason, yes. But if you do it with understanding, that is where the Sammaditthi comes into picture. Proper understanding. What would be proper understanding? That a person is suffering, and there has to be certain reason for it, and there has to be a certain reason for I am not. And that if you see it in the sense of interconnectedness, and now those thought processes become helpful. And of course, when a person has kind of purified the mind, if I may use that word to some extent, then it naturally comes out. You feel compassionate on seeing somebody suffering. But when you see somebody suffering and you get irritated, then one can investigate why am I getting irritated. That's all. State of the mind. So Dhammas Vichaya can helpful there. And then in due course, we will see that it is basically because I am not understanding the situation properly. And once we do it in the light of understanding, then that also can create a compassion. Because you analyze that there is an aversion arising in me. Why is it that I am getting irritated? I have certain desire and I find it is getting obstructed. So a good meditator, when he reflects in this manner, then that reflection can become a trigger for compassion.
And the next slide I purposefully kept because I just wanted to cover this topic that Buddha in various suttas mentions about various jhana states, and if we these four jhana state can be the as per this particular sutta which I am referring to, this MN 53 Seka Patipada Sutta, they can be the heightened awareness, which the four jhanas can constitute the heightened awareness and a pleasant abiding in here and now. So these again can be the skillful means of taking your meditation forward, and but it probably will require years of practice and probably the patience, but I just wanted to cover it more in terms of completeness, because many of the suttas mention about these jhanas. And the second last slide I wanted to mention about is from MN53. It was guard the door of sense facilities. The reason I want to mention here is that because that this way can become one means of investigation where whatever is arising at all those sense facilities like eyes, ear, nose, tongue, body or intellect, one can see whether one is grasping at that, and one can become more mindful, and one can practice restraint, and you can guard that faculty so that one can become more mindful. So Vipassana teaching becomes one part of it, where one sees that what is arising as a tactile sensation on the body, but one can always practice at all of these senses and even the intellect. And intellect becomes very powerful because it fools you so easily that one says that now what I understand is correct, and what I understand is the only thing correct, and then one gets trapped. So one grabs to one's intellect so powerfully, and when one can see that what is just the idea which I am grasping to may wrong also, it can loosen the grasp of those ideas. And the last thing I wanted to mention about the dependent origination, which again Buddha mentions in various slides, and my understanding is that the importance of dependent origination is such that Buddha gives an alternate way of investigation rather than attaching to the view that there is this body and there is something beyond body, or the body is only everything. So Buddha says that rather than getting attached to these speculative views that what lies beyond or the body is everything, Buddha says that rather than trying to answer these questions, because whatever we try to answer will be speculation and will get stuck, he gives this way of dependent origination, where he says that depending upon one thing, another thing arises, and one can actually use this dependent origination as a means of investigation, and you can always like backtrack and see that if you are getting suffering, and you can try to see the source of the suffering, you will ultimately see that something which came through your ears, and your ear consciousness was attached to it, and you liked it or didn't like it, and then all this attachment is coming because this clinging and craving is coming towards it. And one can actually see this dependent origination, at least this part where suffering is happening, and this is happening because of this consciousness happening at a particular door, and when one feeling is happening, and then the grasping or clinging is happening. So this part of at least dependent origination can become very evident, and obviously the part where it like birth and rebirth can become evident, that at least can take time, but this part becomes very quick, and the start of a dependent origination is with like the ignorance, which leads to all the various change, and then if you just see that ignorance is just opposite of wisdom, and once the wisdom comes, you can see that the link is getting cut in dependent origination. And so I'll just read out from here that avoiding the two extremes, so this is the translator's note which I took from one of the suttas. Avoiding the two extremes, he simply drops the question and focuses the attention on what is directly perceivable, the way one factor is dependent co-arising function as a prerequisite for the next. If one were to focus on what might or might not lie behind these factors, one would be tied in speculation about what by definition can never be experienced. But by focusing on the interplay of the factors that are directly perceivable, and by so doing, developing this passion for them, one can overcome the craving and ignorance that keep producing stress and suffering in the way gain release. So this whole of dependent origination can become a way for developing of dispassion and overcoming ignorance and craving. So that can be used as a means of investigation. So there was this question from Silesh that doesn't meditation take you to the state of Brahma Viharas on its own? So you are right that if cessation of suffering happens, then obviously it will lead us to that state of Brahma Vihara. But my sense is that there is no harm in practicing Brahma Viharas, to reciting some of the suttas which talk about those Brahma Viharas more with this investigation and more openness, and most of the time it can actually aid in the path one is trying to follow, rather than waiting that let those things Brahma Viharas come automatically. That's my sense for the question of Suresh. That's it.
Finished?
I'll just ask them any questions.
Thank you.
Any questions?
हमने participants के Sulesh ने, Sulesh, Sudhakar, Meera Bhabhi and Pankaj.
Yeah, Arpan bhi hai.
So tell them I will next meet on 2nd March.
2nd March.
Sunday. Monday I will practice. Want to join 30 days? You're welcome.
You can't join for 30 days.
Anybody who wants.
But
Out of this group is welcome.
But what is your morning schedule? Can we join you similar to what we
Follow the time schedule of the camp which we have. But I'll be doing whatever I feel like doing.
Right.
I'll be of course meditating, and
So from 6:30 to 8 you will have a break. You would not be, last time you said that you would listen to the Advanced Images morning and evening discourses.
yeah, because now I have more time, so I have been for last whole week I have been trying to collect what I would like to listen.
Okay.
And now I have to sort it out. I started sorting it out day 1, day 2, because I don't want to think at that time.
So we were thinking that on Sunday morning, very similar to this, if you, whenever you are listening to Advanced Images discourses, you can join you.
I will be listening to in the morning I will be listening to meditative instruction. Evening discourse.
At 8 o'clock we will be there.
I will listen to the morning instructions and I meditate and listen to the morning instructions. Because there are meditation instructions given by various people.
Right.
So I will be listening to it. I have taken out the instructions on Metta by Vimal Ramsey and instructions on breathing and this Anapana on from him. Similarly, I have taken Rodney Smith's downloaded some of his talks and I am just going through that. Some of today as well as tomorrow I am not busy, so I have to do it on Monday. So I am sorting it out so that I can have it to some extent clarity.
So if we want to join you on Sunday morning, what is the best time to join you? So 8 to 9 the best goal.
Whenever you want. So, because timing I want to follow the
Yeah.
same timing and then let it talk.
Yeah.